As God takes us into a season of healing, I felt compelled to tell a little bit of my story. And in 1993, I was working for a company called Cleveland Mechanical Engineering. I was the service director for them. And we were on a job in Mayfield Heights. Actually, it was in Mayfield Heights High School, where they have a natatorium, full-size pool, and diving well. Very, very impressive place. The diving well was having some plumbing issues, leaking issues, underground issues, filtration issues, and so we were contracted to come in and repair. And so the diving well was drained. My guys had been working, and I showed up one day on the job site, and they had a ladder going down into the diving well, where they had been breaking up concrete and exposing the underground plumbing. And so I wanted to take a look and go down and see how they progressed. It was noon. They were gone for lunch. And so it was summertime. School was empty. And so I went down, looked around, figured I needed a flashlight. So I went back up the ladder, back out to my vehicle, grabbed the flashlight, came back, stepped on the ladder to go down and look. And many people don't know, but the floor of a diving well is not flat; it's V'd for different purposes. And so the ladder was, sitting on a curved or tilted floor. So I climbed back on the ladder, and all of a sudden I feel the ladder go boom, boom, and I went for a ride. So a diving well is 15 feet. So from the top to the bottom concrete floor, I fell 15 feet. When my body hit the concrete, my lower back, I fell on my lower back. I knew I didn't want to hit my head, so I was really mindful of protecting my head. But my lower back took the brunt of the impact. As I was falling, I do remember pushing the ladder away. It was an aluminum ladder. I pushed it away because I didn't want to get tangled up and fall and break my leg or something in the ladder. But I hit the ground, and the impact just really, I went numb from the waist down. And I kind of regathered myself. I was not knocked out, but I couldn't feel my legs, and therefore I couldn't move. I couldn't climb out. And so I got my head, I'm tilting my head up, looking around, trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of here. And all of a sudden my eyes start to get foggy. And I didn't know it at the time, but the ladder had hit me across the bridge of my nose, and blood was running into my eyes. And so that's where the cloudiness was coming from. So I panicked a lot, not a little lot. And so at that point, I just knew I couldn't get out by myself, so I just let it rip and started yelling for help. And there was somebody down the hall, custodian or a maintenance man, and he stuck his head over the top of the edge of the pool and said, "Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back." I thought, I'm not going anywhere. And so next thing I know, we've got fire department, police, and everybody that was working in the school is now standing around the top edge of the pool looking down at me. And fire department came down. They got down there, and the paramedics were checking me, and they thought my pelvic was shattered. And so they were able to straighten my legs out. And the paramedic said, "Buddy, I'm sorry, but I got to do this." And he took his surgical scissors and ran up my pant legs and cut off my pants. And so everyone's leaning over I'm laying there in my undies, and so quite the spectacle. But they ended up putting me in one of those gurneys, and they hooked up a rope rig and hauled me out and got me to the emergency room. And so fortunately nothing was broken other than my wrist. I broke my wrist in a couple different places, and but it was just a high impact trauma to my lower back, and so they sent me home. and thinking that I was okay other than a broken wrist. But from that moment on, I had back problems. My back was never the same. And I found out that because of that fall, I'd herniated 3 discs in my lower back. And so that created a lot of issues for me. Losing feeling in my left leg. My leg was numb. I couldn't feel my toes. And so this went on for about 5 years. And 5 years and 3 significant back surgeries. And all 3 were unsuccessful. I'd have a surgery. They'd say they fixed the disc. 6 months later, same thing. Couldn't hardly walk. Couldn't stand up straight. My left leg was numb. Couldn't feel my toes. They said, well, forget about feeling your toes ever again because you've got nerve damage. And nerve damage doesn't come back. Back then, those surgeries were 5 days in the hospital and then 3 months off work. And so for us, that was not good because this was a workers' comp thing. And my company was fighting the workers' comp thing. And so we had no income. Each of these surgeries, there was no income. And we went through our savings. About halfway through the second surgery, we completely depleted our savings. And each of these times we started having to buy groceries on our credit card and those different things. And so the whole pressure of everything, of being off, not having the income, and you can imagine all that. And then it's just the daily life of living in chronic, constant pain. And so after the third surgery, it was just a few months after the third surgery, I started feeling it again. I started feeling the numbness. I started feeling the same symptoms that I'd been having for the last 5 years. And I was not getting any relief. Nothing was being fixed. The doctors had their chance, and I do remember that I finally had reached my end. Now, granted, we were going to church and over this time frame, and I've had dozens and dozens of people lay hands on me and with oil and pray and all of those things, and serving in the church. And it wasn't because I was living a bad life; it was just a bad thing that happened to me. But God just didn't do anything. And so I remember coming to the Lord when I started feeling the pain after this third surgery, and it was a Saturday morning. I remember kneeling down. Shelley and the kids were still in bed. I was up early. And I just prayed. I said, God, I don't have the capacity to do this anymore. I can't. I'm done. Financially, we can't do it. Emotionally, mentally, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm done. And I just told myself, I just really, really need you. And so we had started, that was in September, and so that August we had started attending Harvest Ridge, where Pastor Kevin is, Pastor Crow. We started attending there in August. In September, he was doing actually a sermon series on healing. And after each service, they would have a different form of prayer where you come up and get prayed for. And so I remember this Saturday, this was going to be the last Sunday for that series. And I determined in my heart that I was going to go get prayed for on Sunday, and didn't care what the message was about, but I just needed God to touch me. And couldn't tell you a thing about the message or the sermon, but I was just waiting for him to finally say, come on up and get prayed for. And so what they did on that particular Sunday is they had Pastor Crow and Robin and then board members and their wives, and they kind of formed a prayer tunnel. And they had people come up and walk through the prayer tunnel, and each couple would lay hands on you and pray for you, and hopefully on the other side, God had moved. And so by the time I got myself straightened up and kind of got myself in line, I'll always remember that in the old sanctuary there at Harvest Ridge, I was on the far right side, and they had those long windows in the sanctuary, and so I was standing right there by that window. Nobody was praying for me. Nobody was talking to me. Nobody had laying hands on me. Nothing was going on. I had lifted up my hands and I began to weep. And I said, God, I'm so desperate for you. I need you to touch me. And I need you, God. And I was desperate. I was broken and I was desperate. And in that moment, I felt like God picked me up and began to dip me, my lower extremities, into this warm, soothing oil. From the tip of my toes, it's just interesting to try to explain to you, but I could literally tell you where the very top tip of my hip bone stopped, because I felt it it was like God had just saturated me in this warm, soothing, healing oil. And I just, what an experience. I began to cry, and I began to feel the tension in my lower body begin to release. Because, when you're in chronic pain, it creates tension, and your body protects itself from the pain, and so it doesn't allow you to move. And so I just began to feel my muscles relax. And, I kept my place in line, and I went all the way through the line, and they prayed for me, but that sensation stayed with me the whole time. And even when I went back to my seat, and I was still worshiping and thanking the Lord, and I still felt that warmth. And it was an outrageous experience. And I knew in that moment that God did in a moment what surgeons were unable to do over the last 5 years. And so I went home and felt better. I went to work, and man, I was just praising God all week. And it was Tuesday. I remember it was Tuesday evening, and I came home from work and piddling around in the garage working on something, and I had dropped a screw, or I dropped something on the floor, and I knelt down to pick it up, and I knelt down on my left knee, and my toes bent, my knee touched the ground. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt my toes in that moment. When you bend down, you feel your toes and you feel the shoe. For the first time in 5 years, I felt my toes. God not only healed my back, but He restored my nerves. And I remember crying, just being overwhelmed with gratitude. Being overwhelmed by the healing power of God. And I stayed in that kneeling position for quite a long time, just giving God praise and honoring Him and thanking Him. And I guess I want to say that to you, for those who are suffering, in whatever form of pain you're having. God knows exactly where your pain is at. And He knows exactly how to bring healing to that area. I just want to encourage you to allow Him. I disagree with those who say that miracles ceased when the disciples ceased. It wasn't just a biblical time thing. That still heals today. And as we come into the season of healing, God knows exactly your area of pain. He knows exactly where the hurt. He knows exactly where the issue. He knows exactly where the point of disease is. And He can get to places that surgeons cannot get to. And I simply want to encourage you, church, to allow God to bring healing to those parts of your life that have been afflicting you for so long. Because God still heals. I love you. Let's go on this journey together and see what God will do.